Are you ready to walk down a path of enchantment? Dilly Dallying in Dollyworld takes you to a reality with beings ranging from angels to listeners, all sharing thoughts on divergent subjects, from desserts to messages from beyond. Dilly Dallying in Dollyworld with Dolly Howard begins now. Produced by Haggy Shack Radio's Colleen Kelly and broadcasting over the Wolf Spirit Radio Network.
I see you moving by.
Oh, hi there, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is another Saturday. It is June 11th, 2016. And I am starting off about the rest of the night with so much excitement, at least in my life. We have Lee Brown as my guest this hour. And can I say that she's next hour's too?
You may.
Oh, good. And she's going to be on Say What after me, so we're going to have 4 hours of Lee today. And I'm so excited. I talked with her yesterday or the day before. My days are all messed up here today, or right now, you guys, because my kids are here.
Day before.
Oh, say hi, Lee.
Hey, Dolly girl.
Nice to have you. Let me do our ads, and then you and I can chit-chat the rest of the 2 hours.
Sounds lovely. Hey, Colleen.
Hi, Lee. How you doing? Well, okay, you can answer me after Dolly's ads.
You're listening to listener-supported stations. You're listening to HSR, who does her magic and puts it through WSR too, and that's Wolf Spirit Radio and Haggy Shack Radio. And they have donate buttons on their pages, so please hit those donate buttons if you can afford to, and donate to either HSR or WSR. All the donations go toward the running of the stations. No one gets any gratuities like the hosts, the producers, the guests. We all volunteer our time, but we need the money to keep the stations running so you can hear us all. We have archives. They're free for the first week after a live show, and then after that, they go into the archives, and you can pay $5 a month, which is not automatically renewed. If you want to re-up it for more months or another month each time, it's a month each time, then you have to do it yourself. That way you're not automatically done for money. And, let me see. Oh, you'll like it because there's years and years worth of shows. You can find a show to your liking, whatever it is. We just have a shitload of archives, you guys. And I'm sure that you can find something you'll like. Okay, so today, let me read a big introduction for you here, Lee. I got it worked up here. I don't know if y'all remember, but Lee's been on with Nancy before. She is a metaphysician in general practice, currently based in Atlanta, Georgia. She's a longtime teacher, body worker, healing practitioner, numerologist, empath, channel for universal energy, guides, and more. She is certified as a hypnotherapist through the American Institute of Hypnotherapy, a certified Reiki master, and a trained and ordained pastor with the Alliance of Divine Love as of 1997. An international church based in West Palm, Florida. She was previously ordained with the ULS in 1987. Lee has been a practicing metaphysician for the past 20 years. Her primary focus is as a practical metaphysician with a general study in religions and a more specific focus in Native American thought and alternative healing through working with all four lower bodies: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Her healing work evolved out of a childhood and adolescence spent dealing with illness and pain. She travels and teaches primarily in the Southeast. She has logged over 50,000 readings. She even participated in her own Olympic torch run through Georgia and Florida doing ear coning, I guess is how you say it, for clients, and also presenting workshops on ear coning. Lee has studied with Louise Hay, Dr. Byron Gentry, Shakti Gawain, Lazarus, I have to ask her about that, Shirley Chambers, Brenda Brock, April Myrick, and Dr. A.M. Krasner, among others. When asked, she will tell you that one of her greatest teachers was a horse named Ashley, through whose acquaintance she had the opportunity to lie very still for a very long time. She'll have to tell you all about that. Lee has worked with the major psychic lines and has logged over 50,000 numerology readings. This also proved to be a major learning experience. She brings all of this information to the table when she does private sessions or classes. She makes available to her clients what can specifically serve them. By having a wider metaphysical view, she is able to save her clients a great deal of time, energy, and money by directing them to an effective path, process, or practice. And she's going to tell us later in the show how y'all can get a hold of her, because she's going to start doing things, and you all can contact her. Okay, Lee.
Dolly, I am sure glad you have 2 hours because I think you just used up half of them blowing my horn.
Yeah, but look how much you've done, Lee, and how exciting your life must be today.
Well, I might have to update that one. I think that was written about 5 years ago. So you've just made me think I need to spend another afternoon with my web mistress. But that's okay. We'll just add one more thing to the list. You know, you tickled me earlier. I was pondering it, and you and I did talk on Thursday, and we had quite a lovely call that neither one of us wanted to get off of.
I know.
But I was thinking about the old Buddhist that the student went and said, "Master, what happens once you're enlightened?" And the master said, "You know, before enlightenment, it's chop wood, carry water, and then there's enlightenment. And after enlightenment, it's chop wood and carry water." So with all of those wonderful things, today was the day to wash the dog and sweep the floors and throw in a client and then do the dishes. So, you say exciting life? Sure is. Chop wood, carry water.
We have a question already, Lee.
My goodness.
I know. Hold on, let me get where I can see it. It's from Vanessa, and I don't know how to say what you do with the ears. She wants to know, what is the difference between ear, is it conning or coning, and ear candling?
I love ear. It's either one. People call it by different names. Ear candling is one name, ear coning is the other. And if you go to the website where it has that page on it, it'll show pictures of ear coning and such. As a matter of fact, some of the pictures are from the Wilder Yard with Nancy. We did a big old Saturday seminar doing ear coning on a bunch of folks down there. It's an ancient practice, actually, and it's really the one that I don't give any refunds. That I always offer money back guarantees on everything I do. And ear coning, I don't. I figure if anybody has decided to put lit things in their head, it's on them. You know, it's a hollow tube, and You light one end of it, and it acts like the flue of a chimney. It draws out yeast, pollen, heavy metals, wax, pollutants. It takes all sorts of pressure off the cilia in your ear, and it's really great for your immune system. People who have sinus headaches and who have a lot of issues when the seasons change, or allergies, things like that. It also, of all things, helps with hearing loss for some people, because our ears respond anytime there's a sound over a certain decibel level, and that sound is, a vacuum cleaner is way over that level. But every time that happens, our ears create wax to protect themselves. And so people that work in fields that have a lot of sound, loud sounds attached, they end up having hearing loss, but it's not always damage to the ear. A lot of times it's just mounds of wax caught up in their heads. One of my tenants, when I could hear her television from my living room, I'd always tell her it was time for an ear combing, because after we'd comb her ears, I wouldn't have to listen to her shows anymore. So I love ear combing. I think it's a great tool technique. Doctors are divided on it. Some of them think it's all hogwash. Others think it's the best thing since sliced bread. We had a young man in Gainesville, Florida, who always had swimmer's ear in the summer, and his mother decided to come to one of the workshops. And after the workshop, he, of course, got swimmer's ear again. So she put the medicine in one ear and combed the other ear. And after the first combing, he felt better in that ear, but she tried to be diligent and go with the medication till a few days later she finally gave up, tired of him hurting, and went in and combed his ears. And she owned up to the doctor with that the next time she went. And he said, "Oh yeah, I think ear combing's great. It's just hard to find somebody that does it."
Wow. I'd never heard of it before.
Well, when you're bored and you have nothing to do in your life, go over to the energyweaver.com website of mine and just tap on the ear combing page. They have lots of lovely little pictures of people getting stuff sucked out of their ears.
Is it Energy Space Weaver or Energy Weaver, all one?
All one word. All one word. Run together.
ENERGYWEAVER.com.
That would be it. And
okay, I just put it in WSR chat.
You had asked me, after we'd initially met, you had gone out and looked at the jewelry page, and I had to sadly tell you that particular ring was gone.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is Connie and I sat down all day on Wednesday and took out all the stuff that was gone, so I won't have to tell people that anymore, and put in a lot of the new jewelry that came in. So again, when you're bored and have nothing to do with your life, you can go look at the pretties on the jewelry pages.
Oh, I will.
And a plug for the shungite for those who don't like to wear raw rocks. There are some real pretty shungite pieces, so they can have their shungite and still be fashionable. How's that for a commercial?
Not just fashionable, but geez, that shungite does a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But some folks just don't like wearing a raw rock. I wear my raw rocks, but some folks like to look at, like it to look a little more polished. So this is a way that they can wear their shungite and get the benefits too.
Yeah. I wear that, we call it the key that Walt made special for me, because he was told to. And, it's not fancy dancy, but the things it does for me are just incredible, and it's got shungite in it.
Well, I was going to say Walt's work is pretty darn amazing. And you add that to the shungite.
Yeah.
He's going to be blowing the roof off of things here if he's not careful.
Yes, he is. And he told me when he gave it to me, he said, "Now play with it, have fun." So I did start playing with it, and then I talked with him one time, and he says, "Oh, play some more with it." And he gave me a few more ideas, and I've been doing that again. Holy cow! This thing, it's not just a toy, it really does things, and it works really quick.
I think you may have been listening when I was talking with Annette about my experiences in the airport with the shungite. Where the security people were patting me down and everywhere they were having problems, everything that was glowing on the screen was shungite. Last week when I did the crystal workshop over in Alabama, the folks I was really kind of coming home on shungite with them, and I was passing around the magnetic bracelet that Cosmic Reality has available, and some of the folks could wear it and some just could not wear that. The energy was so strong for them, but they all wound up going home with shungite in one version or another, whether it was pyramids or raw rocks or the band-aids for their phones. So I'm really glad that Nancy and the team there is all doing so much to help make it available out there. And people are waking up to it. I saw it at the Big Gem Show in Franklin this year again. Last year there was only one tiny little booth that had a little selection. This year, two of the major booths had quite a bit of shungite. So people are waking up, and it's becoming more available finally.
Uh-huh. That's good, because it does a lot of good. I think shungite, it even kind of advertises itself through telepathically through the airwaves. I really think it talks to people. If they're listening, they can hear it.
I think that's true, and I've since I've worked with rocks for so long and been in bending of them between the store and just, doing the classes and having the things available, what I've seen is there's a wave to different rocks. 8 years ago, nobody had heard of Kyanite, and I started bringing Kyanite around, and then within about a year and a half to 2 years, Kyanite was showing up everywhere. Kyanite works with clearing energy and clearing itself, and prior to that, you were seeing mainly the clear rocks, which are more for amplification. So people started getting more in tune. Now, it's not to say that people who specialize in rocks weren't aware of everything, but there's the collective unconscious, if you will, starts waking up to things, and then you start seeing this surge. And I think it truly does make quite an impact, because a lot of the jewelry people are wearing now, they're using the kyanites and selenites and things like that to keep them clear instead of putting them out in the moonlight at night, things they used to be doing.
Uh-huh.
I kidded with you on the phone the other night about I didn't really want to do a crystal workshop. I wanted to do a consciously creating workshop.
Yeah.
But that people wanted the crystals, and I didn't, okay, we'll do the circus of the crystals. But I do think that, crystals are a great tool for us, and I didn't mean to sound like I was denigrating crystals at all.
Oh, you didn't come across that way.
Okay, good, because I think that they're a great tool. We talked about the 3 things that I never thought I'd need in life that I wrote on my notebook in high school.
Yeah, share that, will you?
Well, I knew I would never, in high school, we know everything. We know everything.
Oh, everything, yes.
And I knew that I was wasting my time sitting there in all these classes. And so on my notebook, I had written that the top things I'll never need. And the first one, of course, was math. And now I'm a numerologist. And then the second thing I knew I'd never need was personal use typing. Mama insisted I learn to type because of, if you can't find a job, you can always work as a secretary. This was the thinking back in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And so the third thing was something I learned in science class. And I said to this day, I can still remember the teacher up there explaining a phrase called specific frequency. And I wrote it down word for word what he said. And it was, everything on this planet is made out of molecules. You, me, dirt, air, water, rocks, everything. The only thing that makes one thing different than the next is the rate at which the molecules vibrate. And that was his definition of specific frequency. And I was certain I would never need this information. But what I learned in studying metaphysics, which real simply metaphysics just means that you look beyond the physical plane for information. And so with metaphysics, you learn that not just dirt, air, water, rocks, but also every thought we think, every word we speak, every action we take has a frequency. And that frequency impacts what we are living in, not just our life, but the entire planet. And crystals are carry the frequencies of specific sort of energies, like rose quartz carries the frequency of love. Amethyst carries the frequency of connection to the divine. So amethyst is a good rock if you want to connect to your spiritual guides or your angels. It's sort of a milder energy. There are some other rocks that are more focused or perhaps yank you a little faster or harder. Citrine carries the energy of self-worth. It resonates to the same frequency as self-worth. So using the rocks helps enhance the frequency that you're trying to evolve. So crystals are very handy, but what you can do is you can grow beyond the crystals. The crystals are a tool to work with, but inside of you, you can begin to carry the energy of amethyst or citrine or whichever ones over time. And that's what I work with in the concept of consciously creating, is learning to go from having the stuff to having the energy. So I said the three things I never needed became three of the most important things in my life.
I learned to never say never.
Yeah. That's the one that's going to get you.
Oh yeah, every time. Now I always say everything is possible.
Everything and anything is
yes.
possible. True.
And I say you always have a choice. You might not like the choices you have, but you always have a choice. The only time you don't is when it's your time to die.
I think there's wisdom in that. I wanted to throw your ball back in your card if I could for a moment, Miss Lady in charge of the radio show. You made a comment in our call the other evening. You were talking about when you received information. And after I left the call, I had all sorts of curiosities regarding you. And do you use this aspect of your being as part of do you do readings for people, or do you use it as part of your own life program, or do you just kind of like throw it out there when you know you need to tell somebody something? What happens with you when you get information, if I can just switch us up for a minute?
All of the above. I do readings for people if they ask me that, and yes, I'll do that. But I always tell them, now you might not get what you want, so be prepared for anything. Because sometimes who they want to come through doesn't, but someone else does and gives them a message that they needed more so than what they were looking for. Other times I get a spirit who comes to me and says, you need to tell so-and-so yada yada. So, and it's when I have access to them, like somebody in the chat room or somebody who's around me or someone I have access to will have a spirit that will come to me and say, please, you've got to tell them this. And so, he's having a nightmare, Sherry. It's a dog. He's having a nightmare. I'm sorry. Chance is sleeping under the covers on the bed and he's having this nightmare. And he's moaning. But anyway, so I tell the person, I have someone here who wants me to give you a message. Will you accept it? Are you in a place where you can understand what I'm trying to say to you, and will you accept it? And sometimes people look at me like I've grown horns and go running away. Other times they just look at me funny and say they want more explanation. But other times, most times, they will say, oh yes, please tell me. And so I share with them. And I also have, like Dave, of course, he comes to me when he wants to. And sometimes anytime I call him, he'll come to me, really. Unless he's involved in something that he just can't, but he lets me know I hear you, you're okay, I can't come now. But other times he has 2 chairs that he brings here. He brings the soft, cushy chair, and he brings the stern, dark leather chair. If it's the dark leather chair, he means business. If it's the comfy chair, he means, he's here to play and listen and just have fun with us. I get other spirits and angels who communicate with me. Some of them do it by just plain talking to me. Others do it by giving me a feel. And I don't know how to explain how I get the feel. But I get a feeling, and I know what I'm supposed to do with it. And if I don't, I just say, I don't understand what you're trying to say to me or communicate to me, and so then they get more explicit.
Yeah, that's the frustrating one, the clairsentience.
Yeah.
That's the one that most people have to some degree or another, and that's one that I'm strongest in, and you just get a gut feeling about things. And you almost have to be in the middle of saying it before you know what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're really flying blind a lot of the times, and you hope you're not talking pure bullcrap, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the one that tends to be the most often for many of us.
And sometimes they get messages to me through other people. And these people don't even know they're giving me the message.
Right.
So I say, well, thank you for that. And they look at me crazy again. They're so crazy Dolly.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And a lot of times they don't even know what they've said. You know, I'll ask somebody to repeat what they said, and they'll say, I didn't say anything. And I'll say, well, thanks anyway. You know.
Oh, that happens a lot lately, especially before Sherry and Shannon and the boys arrived. I was getting a lot of things said to me, and I'd say, Nat, what did you say? I couldn't hear you. Jesus, I didn't say anything, Mom. But I heard the voice. And so I would have to I'd have to ask, well, whoever said that, will you please say it to me again? But I've had a lot of that lately. I don't know why so much lately. Oh, did I tell you about the angels? Did you listen to the angel one?
No, but you mentioned about it, and so did Annette when I was talking with her. And that was one of the shows when they were doing the chat afterwards. That I don't know, maybe it was a couple of weeks ago when Nancy was chatting. They were chatting on it, and I kept putting in little all cap things saying, but they're all there to help us when people were saying they didn't want to bother them and all that. And that's their job. They're our friends on the other side. You just ask.
Right.
You know, sometimes the answer is no, you know, but most of the time, if there's a way to let it come in, it will come in, you know, what you're putting out there. And part of that's clarity of thought, too, getting clear on, you know, the directions that you want things to go and things like that. It greases the wheels a little bit.
Right. And sometimes you have to be patient because they have worked on it. The things are set in motion, but it has to happen at the right time for it to be completely what you wanted it to be. And I always say, when you ask your angels, be general and say to them, let it be for the good of all concerned. Because when you set something in motion, you don't know how many people that it's going to affect. It's like when you throw a stone in the lake and all the ripples go out and out and out for forever. Yeah. You don't know how many people it's going to affect. So the angels take care of all that stuff. You just say, let it be for the highest and best of all concern. And they take care of that.
Absolutely.
And don't forget to thank them. That's my little thing. I always say thank you.
Right from the get-go, assuming that if it's meant to be, it's coming into play now.
Oh, I don't. I just know it's going to happen.
Oh, I meant assuming the fact that, okay, that's.
Oh, yeah.
Just like the car's going to start when I turn the key.
Yes, absolutely. We talked about that too. I really enjoyed our talk. Yes.
I did too. I set my tablet this time. The last time I was on, I didn't think about the folks typing in. I didn't know any way to kind of see what they were saying. So I set my tablet to the side. It keeps turning itself off every couple of minutes. But I noted two things on there that interact with what we were talking about the other evening. Someone asked about the gray cloaked ones or whatever, and did I have any knowledge to share? And my experience, you and I both spoke about, we tend to not want to dabble with the dark if we can avoid it. I am not aware when it comes to as they're saying, the gray cloaked ones. Most of my work is with the Priest of Melchizedek and the Brotherhood of Light. I put as little energy as possible toward the negative as I can. There are people here on the planet that are here as warriors, and with the Priesthood of Melchizedek, we do have to stand against dark now and again. But I've been pretty blessed that early on I worked with shielding and all of that to a very strong degree, and that is something I work with a lot of folks, because a lot of folks that do this work, the one big challenge they face, whether it's learning to do healing work or whether it's learning to do what's all healing work, but or learning to do the quote-unquote psychic stuff, is that most are empaths and everything's impacting them. And so we work very hard at shielding initially so that we're protected when we do the work. But I do see beings around. I mean, luckily I don't have to focus on them greatly, and when you do focus on them, they tend to disappear. I've got several beings that live in my woods, and when I do geopathic clearings on people's properties, many times I'll meet with the deva of the property. But again, these are all mainly beings of light, and I'll have the devas do the clearing work and get all the old negative crap out of the property and out of the etheric fields and the ley lines and all that go through. So I don't really have any wisdom to share with whoever that person was. I glance down and see an all-cap thing, and I'm trying to address it with a conversation when I can. Mm-hmm. I also do not know anyone in the Netherlands that does this work, because I don't know anyone in the Netherlands. I've done readings for people as far away as Dubai, because in spirit there is no time and space. And so, we're not really wherever we are where we are. So, between the phone and the Skype, we can pretty much do work anywhere. You, I, and all of us.
While you're talking about that, you want to go ahead and tell them what you're going to do? How they can reach you?
Well, I appreciate you giving me another moment's plug after that 12-hour intro. So good on a Saturday. Well, I'll start with what some folks would say is my shame. After helping to start the Psychic Lines 20-some years ago and working with them ever since, and being with this line for 11 years, the computer let me go. It's been a couple of months ago now. And I had really kind of holed up. When you do this work, when I do this work, let me not put this on anyone else. When I do this work, I go through periods where I become very well known, and then I go through periods where I hide for several years. And the Psychic Line is very helpful for hiding, because you can just stay home and answer the phone and not have to put yourself out there again. When you put yourself out there, of course, that has a lot of extra challenges to it. So a couple of months ago, the computer let me know that my services would no longer be required. It had nothing to do with my abilities, but I only made 95.9 people out of 100 happy. I found that a bit odd. I can't make that many people happy in my own life, but
Well, that's just ridiculous.
I do have a tendency to tell the truth and hope folks are ready for it, you know. I try to say it as nicely as I can, but if you really want to know if your baby daddy who's been cheating on you for the last 10 years you've been together is going to be faithful, I'm going to tell you what I get. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. So you're going to upset a few folks. But anyway, after the computer told me that, I wondered if I really wanted to go back. And I decided that I'd wait till the next day to think about it. And the weekend went by, and I was really enjoying not having a phone attached to me. And a week went by, and another week went on. I'm still thinking about it. It's been 2 months, and I am loving it. I am loving just letting Spirit, you know, bring me folks privately. I have gotten myself available to start doing classes and workshops, and I am seeing more private clients and letting folks know that I'm available. I do a series of things for folks. Usually the way that I start working with them is what's called a full reading, where we kind of look at why their soul came to the planet, where they're at this point, what's going on with them, areas they may want input on. It's not your typical paid and laid reading, as we call it on the line. Most folks have two main concerns. When am I going to fall in love and meet the perfect person, and when am I going to make lots of big bucks, you know? But more importantly is, why are we here? What are we doing? What's coming up? How can I make things work more the way I want them, less the way I'm stuck with them? Those are more things that the reading focuses on. Some people will come to me because they want to evolve their abilities, or because they want to shift things in their lives. And so we do something that I call process counseling, where we work with the individuals right where they are. Like it said in my little internet blurb, everybody's got a process, whether they know it or not. Everybody has a way they're dealing with things and going about things. And we look at all that, and I start offering metaphysical or even common sense, sometimes techniques, because when we're working with someone who is not in our immediate circle and doesn't have agendas for us, and so that was one of the beauties of the lines to me, the psychic lines, is that reader doesn't really have an agenda for you. So the information they're giving you is not focused on any outcomes beyond wanting what's in your highest good. At least that's what I think a good reader does.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Do in the sessions. And I've been accused all of my life that I always work myself out of the job. Most of the people that work with me have tried traditional counseling and things like that, where the person sits back and says, "Oh, how do you feel about that? And, you know, now what do you think about that?" Well, we know what we think about that. We've been in our heads long enough. Sometimes we just need to say things out loud, and sometimes we need somebody who is not involved, who has a broader vision of what's going on, to call, excuse my language, our bullshit our bullshit. I do have a tendency to do that. Or to kind of poke at things and get folks to move along. And I say, instead of being years and years, you know, even the hardest nut I've ever had to crack was, 4 or 5 months, and they went happily on with their lives. The other things, said I do carry a lot of rocks, and I have, I do workshops on everything, like I said, from consciously creating to numerology to, crystals and the use of crystals, and then geopathic clearings. That's for anybody who lives in a property that needs to be adjusted, or that's trying to sell a property that won't move. And like I said, I consider myself a practical metaphysician in private practice, meaning I'm not just going to give airy-fairy techniques that aren't going to make a difference. I want tools that are going to work. You said you want confirmation on things. I want to make sure it's something that's going somewhere. And that's why I say, when I'm doing any of this stuff, the classes and the workshops and private session work, I always offer a money-back guarantee. I've spent way too much time, way too much money sitting through classes, sitting through readings, that I felt when I walked out, not only did I waste my money, but I wasted my time. Yeah. So I try to give people tools and techniques and things that they can use. Now, I can't do the work for somebody, but I can be like another ox in the trace. I can get in there and help pull the load with you till you can pull it on your own again.
Right.
kind of the stuff I do.
Well, I don't think if you did the work for them that they'd learn anything from it.
There you go. There you go. It's like the mother that won't let the kid fall down when it's learning to walk.
Right.
The child never learns to walk. And all of this stuff actually can be very, very simple. It's just that we get caught up in patterns and behaviors. One of my favorite stories, I tend to tell stories to try to get points across. And there was a story about a young married couple, and the wife brought him a beautiful roast from the store. And y'all stop me if you've heard this, just raise your hands. And the husband's sitting there in the kitchen, you know, when you're in love, you're all together all the time. The wife pulls out this beautiful roast, chops it in half, puts it in the pan, does the seasoning, puts it in the oven. And he's watching this and he's thinking about it. And, you know, so another time comes up and the same thing happens again. And he says to her, why did you just chop that beautiful roast in half? And she said, well, that's the way my mother did it. And so holidays come around and his mother-in-law's there and even his grandmother-in-law and his wife, and they're out in the kitchen. And so he says to the mother, I gotta ask you about this. Your daughter takes a beautiful roast, chops it in half, and puts it in a little pan, sticks it in the oven. Well, she says she does it because you do it. And the mother-in-law says, well, my mother always did it that way. And so he looks over at grandmother-in-law and says, okay, it's on you. And she says, we only had a little pan. So here, generation after generation is doing this behavior because 3 generations back, they could only afford a little tiny pan. And so many of us live our lives that way.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah.
We're doing something, but we're not doing it based on who we are in the moment. We're doing it based on who we might have been at a previous time or who generations before us were. And so what I do is help people look at where are you now and where do you want to go?
Yeah. Definitely. I'm taking that all in. I'm sorry. Sometimes it takes me a few minutes to soak in.
That's why I love those little stories.
I like learning through stories. It seems to make a bigger impact on me because I can see all the things that could happen with an action. And it makes me feel it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can put myself right in that kitchen. and just kind of like be kicking myself going, dang, I've got a big enough pan.
Yeah.
We just cooked the whole damn roast today, you know.
Yes.
Of course, that makes for lovely leftovers, so, you know.
Uh-huh.
Meals instead of one.
Here's a comment. How do you make 1% unhappy? Were they not happy down to their last little toenail? She's talking about when we were.
Oh, my 95 point.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the modern day world has managed. When we started the psychic lines back in the day, most of us didn't really want to be phone psychics. I know I didn't. When I went, it was because I was going to help hire psychics and supervise and keep things rolling. I told Brenda right away, I don't want to be a phone psychic. There were too many jokes already after the first line went on the air. But one of the things that was happening is people were waking up all over. So the readers knew that, and they knew there needed to be somewhere that people could contact and, you know, say, I'm hearing things, I'm seeing things, I'm getting things, and have someone they could talk to.
Yeah.
We knew the value of readings, and so we all kind of said, well, okay, we'll give it a go. Now, my problem was that there were 12 phones in the phone room because initially it was in phone rooms. There were 12 phones in the phone room, but I only had 10 people on shift. So when that 11th phone rang, somebody had to grab it.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got pulled into it. And then when that line closed, or when they turned that line over to the readers, everyone worked from home. And so I wanted to get back to Atlanta. I mean, I like South Florida, but it's not my forever home kind of thing. So we all kind of separated out. But lo and behold, with technology now, there are these massive computers that are far beyond anything we imagined in the early 90s. And the computers now make the rules in some ways. I mean, people make the rules, but the computers get to enforce them. And they monitor the minutes, and the callers have, it's a percentage thing, getting a percentage. Mm-hmm. I did a whole lot more than 100 calls. So they average everything in. That's how I got 8.1. So I don't really know. Like I said, with the custom, most of the lines offer they call it a money back guarantee, but most of the time what people do is they can get a second call. They can talk to another reader if they're not completely happy with their first reading. Uh-huh. And just say, you and I know you can't only tell people what they want to hear. Sometimes you have to tell them things that aren't making them happy if you're going to be in integrity. And I always tell people, I've been here for 11 years. I'm going to be here longer. I can't lie to you because you're going to come back to me and say you were wrong. Right. So, and I had many a caller that would call back after they would leave me an unfavorable thing or whatever. They'd call me back a few months later and say, well, I hate it, but you were right. Sorry, I said that crap about you on your page. Uh-huh. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
So, I say they average everything in. They average the number of people that wanted a reading with someone else. And there are people, I would love to think we are all completely in integrity, but there are people knowing that they can get another reading if they say something mean. They just plan on getting 2 readings. And they don't think of that it will impact the readers. They're not aware of what's going on behind this corporation, because it is they all are corporations. It's a massive, expensive thing to put together, and it's a corporation. So the readers are, a small cog in a big wheel.
Yeah.
So, that's the computer.
Oh my God. Go check that, Sherry.
Oh.
I thought it was outside. Shannon, what happened? Was there a noise out there? Somebody hollering? Oh, okay. Sorry, Lee. Sorry.
Welcome to live radio.
Yeah, really. And that, for crying out loud, there was a wasp on Annette's wall and she started screaming. I'm so sorry. But I had to find out who does somebody need help?
I understand. We have someone here that gets that way with spiders, and you'd think the world just ended when they see a spider.
Yes, I just thought that with the wasp. Oh my, so where were we? Can you remember?
Oh, I was talking about the computer system.
Oh yeah, the computer thing. I like to get confirmation that what I say really was. And Shannon was sharing with me just recently, his brother had gotten in an accident and he was in ICU, and they had bay-flighted him to Tampa. So I went to Tampa because Sherry had called me, and so I went up there, and his brother was comatose and was talking with me in his comatose state. So I would pass along the things that Damien was saying to me. And in one of them, I had said something like Damien felt like he was looking through a window. Well, Shannon shared with me when the parents went to, what reader was that, Shannon? George Anderson. They went to see George Anderson, and he said the same thing I had told them. And I thought, well, hot damn, there's my confirmation right there. But I like to get confirmations, just to know that I'm not a frickin' crazy old lady who's off her rocker and likes cats.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the challenge with ever doing this work, and confirmation is a lovely thing. Now, with the calls, be clear, most of the people are playing test the psychic. Most people, when they make those calls, they don't know you. They're spending their hard-earned money, and they don't want to tell you anything, most of them. They want you to tell them everything. So, I made the comment about Ashley the horse being one of my greatest teachers, but I gotta say, working the psychic lines was one hell of an education, because you're doing it, talk about practice, you're doing it call after call after call, reading after reading after reading for people who are, they want to know everything. They think you have a magic ball that's your book that you open to their page and it tells you everything about their life. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons I really liked numerology, because, 98 times out of 100, if I start with their numbers and then, I can get a yes out of them, they start opening up energetically. I can start getting more.
Yeah.
So it really grows on itself. Plus the numbers, you add 1 and 1, you get 2 pretty much every time. Now I will say sometimes guides will step in and make you add numbers wrong repeatedly until you're convinced that 1 and 3 is 7, and you tell them all about 7, and that for some reason that's the information they need to hear, and that's where blind trust comes in. But when you're doing this, but the hope is at some point they'll give you confirmation.
Right.
But it really teaches you that, you just got to put it out there and trust spirit that this is what needs to happen. Tickled me. One of the things I thought about after we hung up was a lot of people asked me about soul path and this and that and the other thing, and regarding their lives and what should they be doing. One of the things I've noticed this lifetime is each step of my life has led to the next step, and I think you've seen this to be true too.
Yeah.
Many years ago, before this psychic line and all of this stuff came up, as a child, my father wanted to beat all this out of me, and that didn't work. And to this day, we don't tell Father what I do for a living. I don't think he's listening, so I think we're still safe. That's out of respect for my mother. She says, you get to go home, I have to live with him, so she doesn't want to hear about all of this. But he, and then when I studied advertising and design, and then left Baltimore so I could go develop this other part of me, each job has added to the skill set that I needed to get to this point. Even my most favorite part is I took a job. I had trouble with the word no many years ago. I took it personally. And so I decided the best way to learn to take a no was to take a job with a telemarketing company called Dial America Marketing. And they raised money for Big Brothers and Big Sisters and Special Olympics by selling magazine subscriptions on the phone.
Oh my gosh.
And so I took this part-time job, in addition to my other job. And at the same time, I was starting to teach metaphysics. And here I am, hearing no after no after no after no, until I really did come to understand that no is just, that person, what they need to be saying, But had I not taken that job all those years ago, I would not have been comfortable to take the calls with the psychic line.
Uh-huh.
It's like even some of the silly little things or things that we think we're doing for one reason or another, they feed into our purpose, our place. I got really annoyed one time with my guides and was stomping my feet at them.
I'm sorry. That tickled me.
Something you do too, Dolly?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And it was one of those frustrating moments, and I've had several situations in my lifetime where I could have been tremendously successful. And all of a sudden something would crash and burn it that I had no control over.
Uh-huh.
And, actually, I'm going to do two things on this if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Finish this thought. And so I stomped my feet at them. And, one of the things that I've done, I used to perform in the 80s. I used to sing and tell bad jokes publicly to make a living. And, we were the sister group to the Indigo Girls. And they've done very well. About the time that record people were talking to us all, my singing partner was in a head-on collision and broke her jaw and her shoulder that held the guitar strap.
Oh.
And at that time, it took her another year before we could start performing again. And the Indigo Girls wrote their first record contract. So a few years down the line, something similar had happened to me, and I stomped my feet at my guides and said, why do you keep doing this to me? Because I'm slaving away on the psychic line, you know, sweating on my brow and everything. And they said, if we'd have let you succeed there, you would not be doing your work now. And so, of course, I blustered at them and said, well, of course I would. I'd just be doing in front of tens of thousands of people and No, you would have gotten caught all up in the music scene and all of that. And now, at that point, that was about 50,000. That was about the 50,000 mark. And he said, but now you've had the chance to impact 50,000 people on a one-to-one basis. And you would not have done that work if you had not been hungry. So that's great. Keep me broke for a reason, guys. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
So that was the one part. And the other thing, the soul mission. I don't know if we did this story the other night, but growing up as an empath, I was ready to leave the planet any moment and also very open to helping and getting myself off the planet. And two incidences that are very big on this. I've had a lot of folks coming to me lately wanting off the planet, and so this has come up over and over recently with clients. I had told you that when the horse fell on me, I heard very clearly God's voice in my head asking, are you staying or are you going? And at that point I said, I think I'll stick around. Life is just getting interesting. And, but prior to this, one of those crash and burn situations, I had opened a beautiful office called the Alignment Center in Century Center in Atlanta. Gorgeous high-rise building. I could look out across and see Stone Mountain in the distance, and I had the wonderful little, the sublease, and had sunk everything I had in it. My aunt had invested with me. She matched me dollar for dollar. And we were just getting rolling. We had people from the building coming in for counseling and for body work, and it was just getting rolling. And we all got a notice. There were 5 small businesses that were subleases, that we had 1 week to vacate the property, that it was a scam and an illegal sublease.
Oh.
And I was devastated. I was not wanting to see clients out of my home again. I was just done. It was one of those times where I was ready to take the car and the dog off the spaghetti loop and be done with it. And I was so done. I was coming back with my last load of things in my car from my office, and I was done. As I came around to this day I go past this point and remember it every time. I looked up, and this woman was coming up the access road, and she flashed me the biggest shit-eating grin that I had ever seen, and it touched me somewhere inside. And I decided right then and there, okay, let's try again. But this time I'm making a rule. I'm making the rules. Of course, we always think we are, but we're not. And so, it renewed me, and I went home and I made a list of what I wanted. And the list started with, I wanted to live on the beach. And then I wanted to make good money, and I wanted to hang with people who were awake and who were aware of more than their nose on their face. And within 3 hours, I got a call from South Florida asking me if I would come down and help start up the second psychic line.
Oh my gosh.
When people say to me, what is my purpose? What is my soul mission? Everybody seems to have, not everybody, folks seem to think that there is some big thing that we are here to do, you know?
Yeah.
And I try to tell them this story because if that woman's sole mission was simply to be smiling in that moment for whatever reason she was smiling, I don't know, but we eye to eye, and this smile on her face, it not only saved my life, but it allowed me to impact. They say at the last count I was at 80,000 readings. So it allowed me to impact the lives, and that's not private readings, that's not classes, that's not workshops, that is just the line.
Uh-huh.
Her smile. If that was the only reason she was on the planet, and it didn't matter anything else she did this lifetime, she impacted over 90,000 people.
It could even have been an angel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But so, sometimes our soul mission is just to find the joy.
Yeah.
And for sure, it's to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
And sometimes that's difficult.
Yep. And that's what our friends and our angels are for.
Yep.
Our guides and our dogs and our cats and our...
Strangers. Even
Yep.
strangers. Mm-hmm.
Even strangers on the access road.
Yep. Absolutely. We have another thing here from Now O'Clock. Lee, do you have any advice to help people help themselves, at least as much as they would help another? And that fits right in with what we were talking about.
It also fits in with what you and I were talking the other night about the airplane.
Oh, yeah.
Before
I forgot
you
about
help
that, yeah.
anybody else, you have got to put that oxygen mask over your own nose.
Absolutely.
There's a saying that you can only give from your abundance. When you're worn out, and I think this was part of why I have yet to call back the line and say, what the heck are you doing? Because I was so drained. We don't realize how drained we get until we're at the place where everything becomes a burden and a challenge. And when we're at that point, that's the energy we start putting off.
Yeah.
The silliest, simplest thing, I've been saying this to people for years and years and years, and now it's becoming a major financial harvest in the world. Color. Get a coloring book and color. You can spend $20 on one at Michael's, or you can go to the Dollar Tree and get one in a box of crayons.
Mm-hmm.
But if you will do something simple, some childlike play, something that is not, that's only engaging that very simple side of you, it allows your mind to open up. And when you do a creative task like that, you're taking all of the pressure off your brain, and all of a sudden thoughts and ideas can start sneaking through that you were too busy focusing on everything else to let through. You were commenting about, since the kids were in town and all, that you've not been hearing and getting so much. But that we're back to the circus then. We can love it very, very much, but some of this work does require solitude and requires quiet. So creating a balance of those things, creating a balance of when you step up and when you stay in. Mm-hmm. And keeping in mind that, if you don't take care of yourself, even when someone else is doing it, it's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same.
Well, we have to take a break, Lee.
All right.
So, we will come back, and whenever Colleen says we'll come back.
Okay, this is Bright Star, and it's somewhere between 4 or 5 minutes.
Alrighty. So everybody stay with us. Lee's gonna be with us another at least 3 hours.
Love the duck.
I'm excited about it. I'm really excited. But right now we need to take a break, especially I do. And we'll see you on the other side.
And we are back.
Okay, I'm back. I'm back.
I've made my way back.
I was just reading some of the chat in the chat room, and I see where Cafe Racer 88 says, Dolly, can I have your giggle as my ringtone, please? I can't get over this because all my life I was told that I have an awful laugh. And when people say they like my laugh, it just kind of floors me. But so thank you, Cafe Racer, thank you. You have lifted my spirits.
Isn't it funny the things we believe that people tell us?
Well, it was family, parents.
Oh yeah, that's where we get a lot of that bad programming from.
Oh yeah.
The other day we were getting ready for a yard sale, which I dread, and so I was going through all the miscellaneous boxes that said miscellaneous important stuff, because you know it's not. And I came across an outfit that I used to wear to perform in, and I sat there and was stunned, because my nickname as a child from my favorite uncle was Little Fat Girl. And all of my young years, teenage years, even my young adult years, I thought I was fat.
Aww.
And I saw this outfit, and I couldn't imagine anyone that could fit into this thing. It was so tiny. And so I ran around showing it to everybody, and I was like, can you imagine I actually fit in this thing? The itty bitty bitty thing. It looked like doll clothes.
Aww.
And they said, well, yeah, we knew you were that little. I said, why didn't you?
Well, because you were programmed differently.
In my head, I was the little fat. And I think your giggle is wonderful too, so.
Oh, thank you. I just spontaneously burst out, when something tickles me, takes my fancy and stuff. And then I think afterward, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I have that reflex. I shouldn't have done that.
That's what makes it so wonderful. It's spontaneous.
Yeah.
You didn't think it through and put it out there for public exhibition. It was just pure you sneaking out.
Yes. And that's the way I roll. It's just pure me. Sometimes I don't just sneak out, it just storms out. Go ahead.
I also noticed in there that the now clock out, and a couple others have put in about being exhausted. And one of the things I find with any of this kind of work, or even people that just are just born to help and help and help, we forget to do the little things. You know, I go back to the crystals again. You know, when things get really tough, a lot of times I grab a Shiva lingam and just go curl up on the waterbed and let it, you know, kind of rock me to sleep for a while. But I think it's important to shut down all of that caregiving for everybody else and go back to the basics for yourself. You know, cook yourself a good meal. You know, put on your favorite movie. You know, I used to always love to pop in like Michael or one of those sort of movies, Stewart Saves His Family, to make me laugh at myself or something like that. Just stop taking care of anybody but you for a little while. Do your meditation or sing a little song to yourself. Louise Hay had some great tapes. There was a woman called I Love Myself the Way I Am. There's nothing I need to change, you know.
Yeah.
So doing the little things to just bring the nurturing back home, to open up that channel again, to let your own energy flow back in.
Right.
You know, do a meditation where you bring in the light of Mother, Father, God, and let it fill you up and push out the old stuff. Make room for new energy.
I just recently bought a couple of singing bowls, and I really like the one. The one bowl sings to me. So periodically through the day as I walk by it, I'll ring it. And then I go around the house with my hands, like spreading the vibes. Mm-hmm. And I say peace and love and understanding and compassion, whatever the moments at that time I feel in my head. I try to spread that energy around. And it seems to help with the vibrations around me. I really like that bowl. That bowl, I did not purchase it. Well, I paid for it, but I was sent to that place to get that particular bowl. I do believe. That's how much it sings to me.
And you're back to frequency again.
Oh yeah, I am.
Mm-hmm. It's a core frequency that is tuning you and attuning you.
Wow. I didn't think of that.
Your birth.
I just know it feels good. It really feels good.
And that's all you need to know.
Yeah. Vanessa was saying, and not looking too far in the future also helps. That can be daunting. Just the next right step can often be enough. I wanted to share with Vanessa, I always tell my kids, live in the now and plan for the future. Live in the now and make plans for the future. But if they change, it's meant to be. Just don't try to live in the future. You can live in the now and enjoy everything now, but make plans for the future, like put money in a savings account or something like that. Don't live yourself in the future because you're not even there yet, and you won't hurt yourself so bad emotionally by trying to live in the future. Live in the now, enjoy every moment now, and plan for the future. Just wanted to share that with Vanessa.
And she has a very valid point, as do you. The right now is all there is.
Yes.
You know, and so, I mean, I never thought I'd live past 18, so tomorrow always surprises me. If you look around, though, one of the challenges that folks will face is some of them live completely in the past and drag it right into now. And some folks are so busy worrying about down there that they're not enjoying now at all. And I think that was one of the great teachings from Ashley the horse. When that horse was falling on me, I knew I wasn't promised tomorrow. That all I had was that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, even though at that point I was into my 20s, and again, surprised I woke up every day, that brought it home very clearly. And you'll find that most people, they have their great awakenings in the moment where they're facing their possibility of not having a tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd hate to grow up in today land. Vanessa said, I also say living in the future is living in your head. I'm trying to understand that one. Okay, Vanessa. It's not sinking in my head what you're saying there, but I'm sure it will others. How can I be sure it will others? I don't even want to assume. Thank you, Vanessa. So Lee, we were talking about the collective unconsciousness. You want to talk a little about that for the listeners?
A lot of stuff you're going to be hearing. The big buzzword right now is quantum this and quantum that, quantum. Part of that is about the collective unconscious. Every frequency goes into building this collective unconscious. One of the speakers the other day, I don't know who it was, they were talking about the election. It might have been David Letterman for all I know. They were saying that, and we're not going to do politics, but the consciousness thought of it. He was saying that Obama is who we aspire to be. Trump is kind of where we are. That though we would like to be enlightened and we would like to be progressive thinking, we would like to care so much about everyone, where we are is kind of trying to hold on to our own, individually. And the collective unconscious is the culmination of all of the thought and all of the frequencies and all of the soul missions and everything all piled into one in the energies. One of the things I've been delving into lately is Tongren therapy, and they do online broadcasts where they do healing work with their modality for people who just come in onto the website, onto the sessions, and they send it out into the collective unconscious. It impacts us. When it came up in our conversation, it was about empaths, and I was saying that empaths don't realize that they're not just impacted by the people around them, but they're also impacted by the flow of the collective unconscious. When there's a lot of fear in the overriding collection, then there's a sense of fear that sits inside the empath, even though they can't look around them and say, "Oh, that person's afraid, so I'm picking it up." No, it's like hearing rap music on the other side of the wall if you're not a fan of rap music. You can't really pinpoint it, but it's working your last nerve.
Yeah.
And so the collective unconscious works in certain directions. And years ago in the study of Schuster, they were saying that when the collective unconscious goes to 85% negative, that's when the pendulum's going to shift and all this enlightenment's going to come in. And we are seeing a wave of enlightenment. We are seeing, partly with the internet, but we're seeing like-minded people coming together. We're seeing people making serious efforts, much like the Shungite movement, that with cosmic reality, of trying to make a serious effort to get this information out to as many people as possible, to get the tools, to get the awarenesses out there, to move away from a narrow-mindedness in the collective unconscious and creating a format where we can all be lifted up, where we can all be raised in consciousness and let go of some of the negative programming. So I think that was where we brought it up, was because I don't think that people are aware. I noticed with Colleen, the book she was reading, I tuned in a little early and was listening about sort of the programming that we're getting. And I mean, I'm tickled all the time looking at the television, watching how the different factions are working to program us in different ways, that they're trying to make us more and more aware, and things are happening more and more quickly than they ever have before. Commented with Annette about the transgender issue. I think that to me it's always surprising that anyone has a gender identity anymore after all the lifetimes we've been everything. You know, it's hard to remember which thing you're supposed to be this time for some of us, you know.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
So to me, the transgender thing, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I knew when I came in, I have this image of me coming down the birth canal, and they say, "And you're going in female," and I went, "What the hell?" and started grabbing a hold of anything I could. And being told that that's the only way, that this is a feminine ray energy we're working with. And what is needful is to kick that pendulum into the feminine ray and to kick the collective unconscious into a more nurturing, into a more emotionally balanced, spiritually awake phase. And that's what this layer is about. I go back to that song, The Dawning of the Age of Aquarius. That was a real thing that was happening. We were moving into an entirely new ray of energy where we're all supposed to be waking up in all four lower bodies. You read that little part of my blurb about that. Used to be that for a long stretch on this planet, we were sort of divided. We have four lower bodies: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Males went dominant mentally and physically. They wanted to be in charge. So they took that by force. And so females became subjugated to emotional, spiritual. So, you know, the old when two come together and create one. That was the old energy. You had to put the physical and mental with the emotional, spiritual. You got one energy. But now it's supposed to be about synergy. Everybody's supposed to evolve themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And then when we come together, we create synergy, like putting the batteries into the flashlight instead of having them sitting next to it. When you put the batteries into the flashlight, you get light.
Oh, I love that. I love that example. Thank you.
So we're at a place now in our relationships where when we come together, we're not supposed to be two half people creating a whole. We're supposed to be two whole people creating a whole new energy that raises the frequency of the planet again.
Oh my gosh. And what you just said ties in to the last couple books I read and to the one I'm reading now. Talk about synergy. Wow. Did I lose you?
No, I was
Okay.
I was lost in the four bodies. I went, how did I go from collective unconscious to four bodies? And I know it was this transgender and the collective unconscious. You know, the shows that are on now, and I'm loving this one show about it's like a sitcom about the young gay guy and his whole family, and it's a sitcom that's really doing well. And then there's this other show about this kid Jazz. I mean, this is stuff that people weren't ready for. Some of them aren't ready for it. But here it is. We're laughing at it. We're smiling at it. We're getting to know these things. And as we get to know, then we move into acceptance and start letting people be who they are. So that's raising the collective unconscious too. So this, you know, like I said, I was people listening about the book, listening to part of the book, and it said all of these things are working for, sad to say, both sides of the coin, quote unquote, good and evil.
Uh-huh.
And it depends on your perspective, which is which most times.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me to thinking about, people say to me about why do bad things happen. And I always have to go back to Hurricane Andrew as my favorite example. I was down in South Florida for that. And I mean, that was a pretty horrendous storm, and
yeah,
it made quite a mess down there. But it was the first time I saw people treating each other with a level of respect. It was the first time I saw people taking turns at red lights instead of blowing their horns and all me stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found, and this is trite, and I know probably every last person is going, oh my God, she's going to say this thing about the worst things, bring out the best in people. It's not completely true. But when we face these hard things, it gives us an opportunity to see what we're really made of.
Yeah.
And so we kind of need some of the bad stuff so that we can really see the good stuff.
Right. I agree.
It shakes up our world enough that makes us think maybe it's not just all about me.
Oh, don't tell me that. I mean, don't let me know that. I'm trying to keep that away from me. No, I really, yeah. If you don't have the bad, how are you going to know what's good? And if you don't have the good, how are you going to know what's bad?
Yeah, it's part of that whole free will thing. One of the images I love to play with in my mind, I was told at one point that this whole humanity thing is a big bet between God and his favorite angel, Satan. That one day, you know, God and Satan were standing there, and God said, you know, I want to create a free will planet. I want to create a place where people can decide if they want to do good or whatever, and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And Satan says, well, you do that and they're going to be all selfish and it's going to be all about me, and they're not going to care about each other and they're not going to this and that. And it's, you know, I'm going to have a good time with this one, God. Mm-hmm. And God says, all right, let's make a bet. If I give them free will, I believe they're going to move toward the light. I believe that they're going to learn to take care of each other and to look out after each other and come to know that if we don't all get there, we're none of us getting there. And Satan said, I bet you not. I bet you that's going to become all self-serving and it's going to be all about me and what can I get. So I feel like we're in the middle of this great bet. You know?
Yeah. So we're the pawns.
We are, well, we could be the cast of traveling players too. You know?
Yeah.
We're the ones who have the power in this to decide, are we gonna move towards what serves the greater good, or are we gonna stay focused? Now, Nancy and I will get into something over this probably at some point, because I said we are the center of our own universe. So we are the ones creating this whole game.
Uh-huh.
I do believe that there's a bigger play in play that we're the traveling actors in. So, say for me, you know, even though I think my mama did me a great disservice teaching me about telling the truth and not taking from others and all of that stuff, I tell her she raised me all wrong. But I suspect that that's going to be the way the game plays. I'm going to have to step on the God side of this one and do the best I can.
Yeah. Speaking of your mother, when you were saying how you were trying to grab hold of everything so you didn't have to be born, that really tickled me. I was way overdue, and I swear it's because I just didn't want to come out here.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to stay in there where I was safe and warm.
Yeah.
I didn't want to start the trials and tribulations of all these things I've been through.
Well, when we set up these plans, we forget what it's like to be all alone in these trippy little bodies. And that's the agreement we make when we come to Earth plane. We're going to believe in the illusion of the play. Like going to a movie. When you go into a movie, you don't sit there the whole time thinking about the traffic going by outside and all of that. You're allowing yourself to buy into the play, into the movie itself.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're inside our mamas, that's the last part where we are one with all in Earth plane, third dimension. And a lot of us during our generation tried to leave. I was one of those that tried to leave in infancy. I think there was tetracycline. I was telling you that they gave me tetracycline to try to keep me here on the planet. And there was a whole generation of us with these brown gray teeth from tetracycline. I look around and I go, "Oh, you didn't want to stay either, did you? Oh no, you didn't want to be here either, did you?" A lot of us trying to get off.
I keep telling God, I don't want to come back. Seriously, God, I do not want to come back. I need a rest. I'm worn out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll probably get over there and say, okay, I need to get back right away.
That's what I was saying. We'll see what happens when you get over there and get a little bit of rest under your belt. I suspect you'll get right back into the fray. I don't think there's a one of us here that isn't handpicked. I mean, I do think this is the Super Bowl of the universe right now. I think that all of the other beings are watching us to see what we pull out of our butts this time.
Gosh, yeah.
And I think that, you know, everybody is here with a purpose, and they say, we'll see where we go with all of it. I don't think it's necessarily an easy lifetime. It is an amazing lifetime. The ancient Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. This is truly interesting times.
Mm-hmm.
But the mortality rate's down. Even the poorest among us has a reasonable, at least in this country, reasonable living situations. So there are things to be said for this time. And, you know, in one of the runes it says suffering in its original sense merely meant undergoing. And I think that as we learn to go through the challenges with less freaking and stress, we don't get as tired.
Yeah.
Then the universe ramps up the challenges a little.
Yeah. I agree. I've been learning, well, ever since Christy was on and we got started with the angels are here and want us to ask for help. I have been working with the angels more, and I find that I am less stressed. Mm-hmm. Because I know when I ask the angels for something, I can let it go and not take it back. Like the window blind, you pull it down, you put it up, you pull it down, you put it up. I don't do that anymore. I know that when I work with the angels, the outcome is going to be for the highest and best of all concern. And it seems to have taken so much stress away from me to realize that. And I want everybody to feel it. I just want to share it with everybody, but I know everybody has to get to a point where they want to be at this time.
I think one of the benefits of getting older, and that's one of the things I love about when I get to talk to young people, is sharing some of these things that can take that load off of them earlier. And I said one of the beautiful things about getting older is that you start seeing, as you look back, you start seeing, well, that was pretty rough, but I'm still here. I've still got a roof over my head.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit worn from the battle, but there's interesting things happening today, you know?
There are.
It helps to, when we learn that if you just roll with the punches, you don't end up quite as bruised. And that's another thing about being able to let go of what has been, because the things that have been were necessary to bring us to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
What could have been different is if we'd have had a broader vision, we may not have gotten as bruised by the situation and not have so much to peel off the onion now.
Yeah. Well, it's like we were saying when we were talking, everything that, I'll use me for an example, everything I have done in my life has led to the next step in my life. And now that I'm this age and I look back, boy, can I see the picture of that happening, playing out. And it makes me not feel quite so angry about some of the things that I went through, because if I had not gone through them, I would not have learned what I learned out of that lesson and been able to move on.
Absolutely.
Therefore, the peeling of the onion thing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a song that in its lyrics said, if it hurts, I've been through it and I got to hear from there. And I think there are so many of us that can feel that way, that we've really bashed our head against it. The thing that tickles me is working the line. I worked with people from the ages of 18 to 90. And you listen to the youngins, or you see on TV these little kids saying, all my life, you know?
Yeah. All my life.
All my life.
That makes me giggle when they do that all their lives.
Oh,
them poor babies.
You know, I talk to the young folks, and, you know, they're telling me at the age of 18, I've been hurt so many times, I just can't love again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to me in 5 years and tell me how many you've loved in that time.
Yeah. But it's the loving that's the process. I mean, anytime you're going to open yourself up to love, you're opening yourself up to pain.
Right?
So, but who wants to live in a world without love in some form or another? You know, even if it's just a puppy or a cat, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, one of the hardest things yesterday, I sat with a woman who was letting go of her pup. The pup had cancer, and it was time for it not to be there. And weeks before, I sat for 2 weeks with a friend whose mother has been in the process of passing. I felt, again, that the struggle that we're able to help our pets go over, but we're not able to help our parents.
Mm-hmm.
But this pet, the woman just loved it, and you know her heart was breaking through this process. But God love her. I mean, I wouldn't have given up any one of mine based on the pain I felt at losing them. So, yeah, we're going to go through stuff, but what we take away from it is the mark of who we are.
Yeah.
You know, this woman, I mean, I wouldn't live without, even though I know that my pups will, I don't know, maybe I get to go before them, but most of them have left before me. And even going to that simple level of love. How much more so we talked about the mother with the child that, you can't keep them from falling down when they learn to walk. Mm-hmm. In the great wisdom of the universe, this is where I like to imagine that all-loving Mother, Father, God watching us skinning our knees and bashing our heads and hearts against these challenges. Mm-hmm. I mean, how hard must that be when people say to me, why would God do this to me? It's like, well, we're kind of doing this to ourselves.
Right. Right.
For some reason we don't see yet, but we will probably see it later. Go back to Ashley again. When I try to pretend I can walk the path I was walking before the horse fell on me, I would have been a very, very different person. And given those parameters,
right.
And I look at every really challenging thing this lifetime, the biggest hurts, the biggest losses, and each one has turned me more toward the path that I think is my path on the planet to do the work I'm here to do.
Yep, I gotta agree. I loved Stan to the fullest extent of love. I couldn't have loved him anymore. And when I lost him, I literally felt my heart shatter. And I lost part of my soul. I saw it leave my body. And Sherry said she heard it leave my body. She's my youngest, who's staying with us until they go to their house next week. But if I had not loved Stan, if I had refused to go through something that painful prior to coming here, I would have missed so many wonderful things in life. Him being in my life made my life so much better that I am very grateful that I had the opportunity with him that I had and that we had as long as we had together. And I do not regret it. I don't regret any minute or second I spent with him. But it was hard to lose that and move on. Took me many, many years until I could say to myself, I need to get out of this and move forward. But when I did move forward, I had so much knowledge that I wouldn't have had he not been in my life to work with in order to move forward. So, I guess I needed that in my life. Even no matter how sad it was and how much I miss him. So I want to say to people, don't be afraid to love. When you do get a love in your life, love with all your being and enjoy every second you have. I'm done with that.
The saying popped in my head about the broken heart lets the light in.
Yeah.
When I would have callers who would say, I was with him for 5 years, or I was with her for 10 years, it was all a waste. My question always would come back, are you trying to tell me you were with someone and loved someone for that long, and there weren't moments in there that you would not give up for anything, even the pain of losing?
Mm-hmm.
If that's true, then yeah, you wasted 5 years of your life.
Well, yeah, yeah.
There was something there that fed you during that time. That it doesn't last forever is simply a mark of the change. To me, it's amazing when people can last a very long time under the current energy. I am notorious. I do weddings, of course. I don't do many of them because I don't think a lot of them ought to be married. So I don't stand in front of God and everybody and saying, yeah, they're really going to do this. I really am an advocate of 5-year contracts nowadays because the planet right now, we are here to grow. We are here to expand. We are here to become more. And if you can do that at the same pace with someone else, and if you can both evolve, then that's wonderful. But what seems to be happening is that it's far more difficult. It used to be, like I said, 2 halves made a whole. And our financial situation on the planet, in this country, does seem to make it, where we tend to depend on each other's income and all of that stuff. But we're not growing at the same pace. If both partners are not growing at the same pace and in the same direction, then things are falling apart.
Yeah.
And to be able, to me, it's not about not divorcing. It's not about not breaking up or any of that. It's about if you love someone, you even love them during the letting go, during the breaking up, during the moving on in your own lives, rather than trying to wreak vengeance because your plans have changed or their plans have changed.
Mm-hmm.
The commitment is to love. And that's what I like about ADL. I'm not a big fan of dogma of any sort. And ADL's core belief is to seek the highest path of love in all things. ADL doesn't say this is bad and that is bad and that is bad. It's saying if that's the path you need to go on, then do it with the greatest degree of love that you're capable.
I like that.
So as we're growing and changing, it doesn't demonize the other person for not being who we expected them to be. It's trying to love them as they are. And if we need to let them go for their good or our good, to do it with love for ourselves and with love for them.
Uh-huh.
And to be willing to move forward into the next phase of our life with the minimal amount of fear and not expecting that tomorrow is going to be a recreation of yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People love and fear that at the same time. They want what's familiar, but they also want things to be better. Well, if they can't change, they can't get better.
Right. Absolutely. Things have to change. Well, I think they have to change. I shouldn't say it as a blank statement. In my world, things have to change.
I wandered into a little metaphysical shop in Hollywood when I was living up there, and they had these little sayings in eggs. You had to pick an egg when you were checking out, and the egg said the only difference between a rut and a grave is the depth.
Is the what?
The depth.
Oh, oh, yeah. Interesting.
So sometimes we need to just change so we're not in our rut till it becomes our grave.
Nancy always says we create our own reality, which when she was first saying that, I was thinking, oh, she's so full of it.
Huh.
But that's why I started with Nancy, think, oh my God, here we go with that Shungite lady again. Holy cow. But the more I listened, the more I saw that she is full of wisdom. And if I could just open my mind and heart and to her, I could learn some things. And I thank God so much for bringing her in my life all the time. I do. 'Cause I have learned so much. But what I'm getting to is that reality. I think there is a change in general reality. Now, I'm living in a different reality now than I was when I was a kid. And I think a lot of us are. I think, like she said, we are creating a new reality. And I like it better in this reality. And when I think back and I try to remember back the other reality, I know it had its purposes. I know without it I couldn't be where I am today. But I wonder, why did I have to go through that reality to get to this reality? I bring myself into a circle. Because sometimes I think, well, because if I hadn't gone through that reality, I wouldn't be in this reality. But why did I have to go through that reality to get to this reality? If that makes any sense.
Well, it's. I think a lot of that is, like I say, I learned through opposition. I think it's our soul set up. You know, it's kind of like when you're reading a book. They have to set up the framework for the thing. And our childhood is part of our soul setup. I learned through opposition, and growing up, I knew I didn't want to be who my father was. You know, I knew I didn't want to be bigoted and hard-lined, and we all come in with different things, but we choose our family to help get the programs in play for us to push against, if not to be nurtured by. And so I think that we set up these childhoods from a soul's wisdom. And then when we're in these drippy little bodies, we only see our narrow vision of the moment. And I think that when we're able to, it's sort of like when we get past it again, as I look back and see things that I wish had been different. Uh-huh. I look back and I see things that, you know, even to this day, I mean, I was telling my mother all about a wedding I had done. And I expected her to say, "I'm so proud of you." It was such a beautiful ceremony, and I even showed her the video they had sent me afterwards. And what she said to me was, "I'd expect nothing less."
Oh. Well.
we were in the car. We were in the car driving out to see my cousins. And I said to her, I said, "Mama, I was all ready for you to say, 'I'm so proud of you,' because I've never heard that really." Uh-huh. And she said, "Well, didn't I say that?" I said, "No, you said I'd expect nothing less." She goes, "Well, I wouldn't expect anything less from you." And I said, "Okay, now I got it. Whenever you say I would expect nothing less, it's your way of saying I am so proud of you. I love you so much."
That was a good deduction there for you.
So I think it's important for us to be able to reframe what we went through in whatever ways we can, so that we don't get caught in it. They say childhood is the time to be at the mercy of. Adulthood is when we fix all of that. We change all of that. We bring ourselves back to the forefront.
Interesting. I have never heard that before. Can you say that again?
Childhood is where we're sort of at the mercy of. Childhood is where we are the I wish I could remember the exact words that were said to me, but it's where things happen to us, and adulthood is when we start making the things happen. Adulthood is where we reframe and we're able to shift and change and take back the power in our lives.
I really like that. Thank you for sharing that.
And you will look around you and you'll see people that never, even if they're 40, 50, 60 years old, they never really stepped into adulthood because they're still playing out the same childhood stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. They're still living in the past. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's still what controls them. It's still what guides them. It's still what is the forefront of their focus.
Uh-huh.
You were talking about the thing about creating. The first line of all the consciously creating classes that I have taught always is, as individual sparks of Mother, Father, God, we can and do, consciously or unconsciously, create our reality. The goal is to move that creation from unconscious reality into conscious reality.
Yes.
Now, having said that wisdom, Nancy is a wonderful one to keep reminding us.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Even as annoying as it can be.
I really, she did really annoy me with that Shungite talk. But by George, it works. And I'm so glad she did it.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing, ally for us. Said I'm looking across the room and I'm looking at a large piece that she allowed me to adopt when I was there. And I've got an entire bin of it sitting right here in front of the bear table that is going out to find homes and such. Connie suggested if anybody called from the radio show or went to the website and wanted to get a piece of the jewelry, that I should send out a piece of raw shungite with every piece of jewelry that was bought from the radio show. And I told her, I said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. I'm glad I just thought of that looking at the shungite. So if anybody mentions they heard it on Dolly's show when they said they find a piece of jewelry, I will send you your own pet piece of shungite.
But Nancy was saying how shungite, it has certain people it doesn't want to go to and certain people it does want to go to. So I would suggest that you ask it, do you want to go and be with that person until you get the piece that says to you, yes, I want to go to that person.
Absolutely. Much like the jewelry, every rock I have is hand-picked. And if folks are into crystals, by the way, I didn't put a bunch of crystals up on the site, but if somebody's looking for something, just feel free to let me know and I'll see if there's something here. But, let's say I'm real bad about getting stuff online, but I carry quite a bit as far as all sorts of crystals, mainly the working rocks. I've got a few exotics, but mainly the working rocks that we talked about earlier.
So Lee, do you want to tell people how to get in touch with you? Like, are you going to do numerology people now and readings, and are you going to open yourself for that kind of thing and let people know?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, we need to let them know how to get in touch with you.
The easiest way is to go to energyweaver.com.
Oh, okay.
Energyweaver.com, and there's all kinds. Connie put in a bunch of links to send it to my email address, which is theenergyweaver@aol.com. But the Energy Weaver website, you'll find out far more than you ever wanted to know about me. Although Dolly did a pretty good job of that already in the last 2 hours, I guess, also. But there are links, there's information there on the various types of readings, and there's I can't really get the folks in other states for ear conings right now, but if folks want to set up classes or workshops in their areas and it's not too far away. I said I travel to Alabama, I've gone to North Carolina several times. I have set up workshops and classes down in Florida several times. And I used to teach up in Maryland, but that's a bit of a haul right now for me. Not impossible, but it takes a little more time to get that set up.
Yeah.
And I said, that's the easiest and quickest way to get through to me. And, just let me know how I can be of service and we will connect. All of the above, Dolly, all of the above. It really depends on what's going to serve the individual. Somebody said to me, you need to do an elevator speech. And I thought, I still don't really know what that would be. Years ago, and I'll stop with this because I know we're running out of time. Years ago, there was a huge symposium I was a part of up in the Smoky Mountains. And they nicknamed me OEO. That stands for O Enlightened One.
Oh.
But when they started that all weekend long, all I could think of was the movie of Dorothy and Toto, Wizard of Oz. All I could think of was the monkeys, the flying monkeys. Oh, Leo.
Yeah.
Whenever anyone would say OEO, I would think of flying monkeys coming out of my butt. So it keeps me real humble. I am a metaphysician in general practice. I want this stuff to be practical and simple and down to earth. And when the pedestal comes out, the monkeys fly out my butt. So I really
The
prefer
pictures
laughter to
comes in
tears.
my mind.
It's a lovely visual.
Yeah, right. Pooping
Oh.
monkeys.
You have been my blessing this evening. I'm so grateful you asked me to come play with all y'all.
Oh, Lee, you have blessed me immensely. We gotta call each other periodically and talk.
Let's do that. We'll swap insights and maybe a dirty joke or two.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing everything you've shared with us. And I suppose I have to turn you over to the kidnappers, the hijackers.
Yes, you do.
Oh, and Annette she was saying, I went there, Lee, and sent you an email with my order. Thanks.
Oh, she got ahead of you, Dolly. Oh,
She
my
did,
Lord.
doggone it.
She got there first. All right.
All right, I'll turn you over. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please come back next week when we will have Dr. Rita Louise. She has done an ancient alien show, and she's you'll like her. Okay, so bye-bye. I love you. Thank you. Colleen, take it over.
Will do, and thank you. I'm going to hang up, and I'll call you right back, Lee.
Okay.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
But I know I can't be your guardian.